It's 7:20 in the evening, and your thumb is already inside the app. You didn't decide to open it. Your hand decided, somewhere between the couch and the silence of the kitchen. The burrito bowl is $19 on the menu. By the time the fees arrive, the service charge, the delivery, the tip you feel guilty adjusting, the screen says $34. You look at it for exactly 1 second. Then you press the button because it is 7:20 and you are tired and the kitchen is dark, and $34 is the price of not having to decide. 30 minutes later, a stranger hands you a warm bag through a cracked door, and you eat on the couch with your phone propped against a glass. By tomorrow, you will not remember this meal happened. That is the entire point of the $34. It is designed to leave no mark. Now, hold that dinner in your mind, because this is a story about the same decision at 7:20 every evening for 30 years, and about the two different lives it quietly cooks. You are 25. It's the next evening, and you are standing in a grocery store you have technically been inside 100 times without ever really seeing. You buy chicken thighs because a video said they were forgiving. You buy rice, an onion, a bag of frozen vegetables, olive oil, salt. The total is $23, and it will feed you 4 times. You go home, and you ruin the first meal completely. The chicken is gray on the outside and frightening on the inside. The rice is somehow both crunchy and wet. You scrape the pan with a fork and eat the salvageable parts standing over the sink, and the pan carries a burn scar you will never fully scrub out. Nobody claps. There is no montage. This is what the beginning actually looks like. That month, the number your bank app used to lose quietly to restaurants and delivery, somewhere around $600, becomes $250 of groceries. The other $350 you send somewhere before you can feel it, into an index fund. The whole market, one button, no opinion required. The balance says $350, and it looks like nothing, because it is nothing. You keep the burnt pan. You don't know it yet, but you will keep it for 30 years. You are 26. A year of Tuesdays has gone by. You can make 8 things now without looking anything up, and 2 of them are genuinely good. At lunch, a coworker watches you unpack leftovers and grins. "Life's too short to cook, man," he says, stabbing a fork into a $16 bowl that arrived in a bag stapled shut. He's not wrong, exactly. He's just answering a different question than the one being asked. Your account reads about $4,400 at the end of that first year. You put in nearly all of it yourself. The market's contribution was small enough to be a rounding error, small enough to laugh at. And he would laugh if you told him, so you don't tell him. The $4,400 is not the part that matters yet. The part that matters is that 7:20 stopped being a decision. Your hands go to the cutting board now the way they used to go to the phone. The app is still on your screen somewhere, 3 folders deep, unused, like a number for someone you no longer call. You are 27. There is a person you want to impress, and every instinct from the old life says restaurant, says candles someone else lit, says a bill you slide your card onto without looking. You cook instead. You are nervous the entire afternoon in a way no reservation ever made you nervous. You make the short rib thing because it forgives, and the kitchen fills with steam, and she leans against your counter with a glass of wine and watches your hands, and something happens over that stove that has never once happened over a menu. She sees you doing something you are actually good at, something with heat and timing and care in it. Years later, she will tell people that was the night, and she will not mention the food itself, because the food was never separate from you. The dinner cost $11. You have spent $200 trying to buy the feeling that arrived free with the steam. The account keeps its slow arithmetic in the background that whole year, unwatched, unimpressive, climbing through 14,000 while you learn the difference between spending on someone and cooking for them. You are 29. something has happened that no one warned you about, which is that the skill compounded before the money did. You have 10 dishes you can cook without thinking, the way other people drive familiar roads. A short rib thing that takes 3 hours, most of them unattended. A soup you invented by accident and cannot fully reproduce, which somehow makes it better. Your apartment smells like garlic on Sunday afternoons, and people have started orbiting that smell. Friends arrive at 6 and stay until 11. Nobody checks their phone at your table, and you never ask them not to. A friend that year discovers meal kits, then a powder that claims to replace food entirely, then a fasting app that shouts at him in notifications. He is optimizing, he says. He spends more on not cooking than you spend on cooking. And every few months, the system changes. Because every system built on avoiding the kitchen eventually collapses back into the app at 7:20. You are not optimizing anything. You are just chopping an onion the same way on the same board at the same hour, which turns out to be the only system that survives contact with an ordinary Tuesday. The account crosses 20,000 that year. You notice, the way you notice a green light. The dinners are the thing now. The number is just something growing quietly in the same house. You are 33. The balance reads about $46,000. And for the first time, you do the other math, the one you've been avoiding because it felt unkind. The coworker with the stapled bags has been ordering dinner most nights for the 8 years you've known him. Call it $500 a month against your $250. The gap, invested the way yours was, would be sitting somewhere near $50,000 in his name. It is sitting in landfills instead. In 1,000 paper bags, in a decade of 30-minute waits for a stranger's knock. He is not foolish. He is busy and tired, and the app is very good at being there at 7:20. There's a quieter ledger too, one with no app tracking it. You sleep better than you used to. Your blood work comes back boring, which you have learned is the highest compliment blood can receive. You know what is in your food because you put it there. None of this was the goal at 25. It all arrived anyway, the way interest does, without ceremony. You try, once, gently, to bring it up with him. Not the money, never the money, just the cooking. An offer to show him the 3-hour thing that mostly cooks itself. He waves it off with the easy grace of a man declining a religion. Too far gone, he laughs, and orders lunch on his phone under the table while the meeting is still happening. You let it go. You've learned that 7:20 cannot be argued with. It can only be lived differently. In plain sight. For long enough that someone, eventually, asks how. You are 37, and this is the year the spreadsheet never modeled. The company folds your job into someone else's in March. For 5 months, you were a person who used to have somewhere to be. The automatic transfer, the $350 that has left on the first of the month for 12 years, stops for the first time, because it has to. And here is what you learn about the habit in the year everything else goes quiet. The cooking doesn't stop. It can't afford to stop, but it also doesn't want to. At 7:20, there is still an onion, a knife, a pan with an old scar, 20 minutes where your hands know what to do when nothing else in your life does. You cook through the interviews that go nowhere and the ones that almost do. You cook the night the severance runs out. You feed yourself well on almost nothing. Rice and beans and eggs and the vegetables no one else wanted. Because 12 years of Tuesdays taught you how. And it costs so little that the emergency fund stretches 3 months further than the math said it would. The portfolio drops with the market that same year, then drifts back up while you're not looking, the way it does. It ends the year around $83,000.
But the number is not what carried you. The knife was. You land the next job in October. The first night, you make the short rib thing. It takes 3 hours. You have never needed the 3 hours more.
You were 41. The number has recovered and pushed past $130,000. And this is the year you notice the second inheritance forming, the one that doesn't show up in the app. It's a Saturday, and your daughter is 4, and she asks to crack the eggs, and you let her, and half a shell goes in, and you fish it out with a bigger piece of shell, the way your hands learned to somewhere in the blur of your late 20s. She narrates the whole thing to her stuffed rabbit. Dinner takes 40 minutes longer than it should, and it is the best meal of the year. Down the street, families you know order in 5 nights out of 7, and their kids are growing up believing dinner is a doorbell. Not because anyone chose that. Nobody chooses it. It arrives one tired 7:20 at a time until it hardens into the way things are. Your kids are growing up inside a different way things are. They think the kitchen is where evenings happen. They think the counter is where you stand when you talk about your day. 30 years from now, some version of this hour will surface in their own kitchens without them knowing where it came from. And that transfer, invisible, unpriced, compounding in a currency no app can hold, may be the largest return the $350 ever paid. You are 45, 20 years of 720s. The account crossed $200,000 sometime last spring, and this was the year the machine changed hands. The portfolio grew by more on its own than the $4,200 you fed it, which means the decision you make at the stove each evening is no longer the engine. It's the ignition that started an engine now running without you. There are children at your table now. They are picky and loud, and they think food comes from the kitchen, from the cutting board, from you, because that is the only place they have ever seen it come from. They will carry that assumption out into the world the way you carried the opposite one. Your daughter stirs the soup, standing on a chair. She will not remember learning this. That is how the deepest things are taught, below the waterline of memory, one Tuesday at a time. Some evenings, you stand at the stove and catch yourself doing the arithmetic of the old life. The $34 that would have arrived tonight in a bag, times the table, times the years. And the number gets absurd quickly, so you stop and stir and let it be absurd somewhere you don't have to look at it.
You are 50. The balance is around $328,000. You went to a work dinner last month, a good restaurant, the kind with a menu that doesn't show prices, and you enjoyed it completely. You order without flinching, and you taste everything the way only a cook can taste, noticing the brown butter, the patience in the reduction, the salt landing exactly where a person meant it to land. The meal is wonderful, and you can afford it in a way that has nothing to do with the bill. This is the part people get wrong about the 30 years. You never stopped eating out. You just stopped doing it by accident. A restaurant became what it was always supposed to be, an occasion, a pleasure chosen on purpose, instead of a $34 shrug at 7:20 because the kitchen was dark. The coworker is still at the company. His doctor has started using words like pre and borderline and monitor. He jokes about it in the break room, holding a stapled bag, and the joke lands strangely, and everyone laughs a beat too late.
You are 55. 30 years. Closed. The app on your phone, some descendant of the one from 25, shows a balance of about $513,000. Sit with the breakdown, because the whole story lives in 2 figures. Of that $500,000, the money you actually sent, $350 a month for 30 years, comes to $126,000. The other $387,000 is growth. Money you never earned and never noticed arriving, paid to you for the crime of cooking dinner and not flinching. But that number is the smaller inheritance, and you know it now in a way you couldn't have known it at 25.
The larger one has no balance. It is the 10,000 dinners, the friends who orbited the garlic, the daughter on the chair, the year the knife carried you when the job didn't, the boring blood work 30 years running, the pan with the scar from the first ruined chicken, still in the cupboard, still your favorite, seasoned now by 3 decades of Tuesdays into something no store sells. You made $500,000, and it is somehow the least interesting thing you cooked.
There is a dinner that spring. Nothing planned, the kind that assembles itself. The friends from the garlic Sundays, older now, one of them gray, one of them gone through things you helped carry. Your daughter, taller than the counter she once needed a chair for, making the soup you could never write down, from memory, from her hands. Somebody asks what the secret is, half joking, gesturing at the table, the room, the smell, the whole warm architecture of the evening. And you almost tell them about the $350, the fund, the number sitting quietly in an account like a second person who worked the whole time. You don't. Not because it's a secret, but because it's the wrong answer. The right answer is that 30 years ago, you burned a chicken and ate the salvageable parts over a sink. And then you did it again the next night, slightly less badly, and you simply never stopped. That's the whole recipe. Everyone at the table thinks you're being modest. You're being precise.
Somewhere right now, it is 7:20 in the evening, and someone is on a couch with their thumb already inside the app. The bowl is $19. The screen says $34. They are tired, and the kitchen is dark, and the button is right there. And they are not doing anything wrong. One dinner is nothing. That was always the trap and the door at the same time. The $34 is too small to matter, which is exactly why it keeps getting paid, and exactly why the few people who redirect it end up somewhere no one can quite explain. You were never choosing between a burrito bowl and a fortune. It never feels like that, not once in 30 years. You were only ever choosing what 720 was turning you into while you weren't paying attention. The kitchen was never about the food.